Do us a favor, help us out on the back end. It is completely free. Call $0, 0 cents, and everyone from UCSS would really appreciate it. You talk about play callers. Kevin Stefanski has been the play caller for the Browns for the last 4 seasons. They've interviewed some candidates, as Jason just alluded to, who have called plays in the past, some who have not. You could add more. You could add Johnson to the list, but the question for here is, and we'll start with this one because it's a two-parter, should Kevin Stefanski be the play caller next season? And I know there's the variable of they don't have an OC yet, but all things equal, should he be?
Yeah. I mean, I think he did a great job last year.
If we went back in time to 2 years ago and these two said Stefanski should be the play caller, knock me over with a feather.
As G. Bush always says, as you get new information into the system, and you're not willing to pivot, then you're insane.
Well, that's what's good about this show. We have nobody that's so pig-headed they can't change their mind.
No,
I am.
Just ask Houston fans.
You're most likely to kill someone, which we haven't discussed since that day I said that. It's probably me. Actually.
There was a point in his tenure here where I thought he was not doing a good job calling plays.
Sure.
I had even advocated that he should become the CEO and bring in someone, and he should manage the whole thing and let someone else handle the play calling, and same thing with the defense, as he does on the defensive side. I've changed my mind because this year, with what he had to work with, 1 wide receiver, 5 quarterbacks. What the hell? How can you not
No tackles.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's earned the right. You lose Nick Chubb. Somehow he's putting the pieces that he had and making a puzzle out of it. And that's what good coaches do.
And I think at this point, if your ownership, the GM, whoever's making the decision, you got to say, do you trust Stefanski? Well, I don't know how you couldn't. And if you do trust him, then you've got to allow him to make that decision. There are coaches who have called plays, and sometimes they change their mind, and then they let an assistant call plays, and maybe that will happen. But I think he's earned the right, in my opinion, if I were Jimmy Haslam, I would say, hey, Kevin, decide. You want to keep calling plays?
Do you think that's going to happen? Because I agree with you. I think that it should be up to him. But they've already said if Kevin's not calling plays, it's because Kevin doesn't want to.
Right.
Well, we know what play calling means to Kevin.
Right. I don't believe.
So I'm not going to buy it if Kevin suddenly steps forward and says, you know what? My play calling days are over. I'm going to be the CEO. I'm going to bring a new guy. I won't buy that.
I think we're all influenced by things we've heard off the record.
That's exactly right.
And we've heard enough things off the record from more than one person that tells me that if Kevin Stefanski's not calling plays, it was pushed on him.
I agree.
Now, I don't know. We don't know that. At least I don't with 100% certainty. But I've heard it from enough people that I trust very much that I think it's pretty safe to say that if he loses his play calling, it was not his call. So I hope that doesn't happen. But no, I don't feel confident that it's not going to happen.
Man, I'll save that analogy for when we get to that. But the case for Kevin Stefanski keeping his play calling ability is, I said yesterday or a couple of days ago, we argued over Deshaun Watson. And I said he's only played 11 games, right? And if you're Kevin Stefanski, you're gonna want to go to the front office and say, hey, look, you telling me in only 11 games while he's not practicing, I got to give up play calling? I haven't even worked with the guy.
That's true.
I haven't even worked with him. Like,
not even a full season.
He couldn't practice half that season. Then he got hurt. We was trying to mask and mismatch and make sure that he could stay on the field. So I don't know why I would give up play calling for 11 games when, guess what? I need the opportunity to work with him. And also, Stefanski will know more about his personnel than anybody else that comes in there. Right? He knows what their skill sets are, weaknesses, and strengths, right?
He's been here, of course.
So that informs your play calling when you want to call and dial certain things up because you know the personnel. Another guy's going to be blind to it. He's just going to come in and say, well, I'm going to run this play, you run that. And obviously, Stefanski will have some say, but I think that would be his main drawback and his rebuttal to saying, like, look, I know the team, I know how to call plays, and like Jason says, I'm moldable. I know the game of football. Football, I can learn from anybody. I'll bring somebody in to learn, and I can implement that on the field. I'm not rigid. So in that case, it makes a pretty good case to not give it up.
I've been trying to avoid this conversation because, and Bull, you alluded to it, you hear so many things, and it's hard. Like this stuff, I'm going to sound like I'm getting on a soapbox. I'm not trying to get on a soapbox, but like it's hard sometimes to get to the root of the truth. And in my role, like that's what you try to do. You try to get to the truth, no matter where that. But in a lot of instances, this is a great example. It's a lot of he said. So which side are you going to believe? And it's hard to get to the truth. And yes, we've heard a bunch of stuff. I've heard a bunch of stuff about this, but nothing that I have been able to confirm and get over the line to be able to report it and come out here and talk about it. And I agree with what you said. A lot of what, it sounds like it would be taken from him, not necessarily he'd give it up. This is the only thing that I would say that maybe that there is validity to that he would willingly give it up. He did say on the record last year, I think it was in that Pardon My Take podcast, but at some point, I know he said on the record, play calling is exhausting. Like you have to make a decision every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, it's true. Like it's as soon as that plays over.
While making other macro decisions.
Decisions.
What the hell's the defense doing? What if
And he did say it's exhausting. Now, maybe he has gotten to the point in his career where he says it's not worth it and I need to, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's but I know that he has said that publicly on the record in the past.
But there's also plenty of statements that he's made in the past that lead all of us to believe that he really enjoys play calling and wants to continue play calling. So he himself has been, it's a little bit of a mixed message.
And that's why I go back to, like, it's so hard sometimes for us to come out here, at least for me, because, like, I like to say definitively, this is what I know.
Sure.
This is what I know. This is what, this is what I'm reporting. And in instances like this, there's so much noise out there that it makes it very difficult to be able to come out and say definitively, this is what happened, this is why they're doing that.
Okay, so let's separate, and this is hard for you because you deal in the world of facts. And in the media space, what we've seen more often as we've moved along the continuum is we've gone, as an industry, away from facts and into takes and opinions.
Yeah.
So let me ask you strictly an opinion now. I'm not asking you as a reporter who is supposed to dig for facts.
Yep.
Your opinion, do you think he will be the play caller? Do you think he should be the play caller?
Honestly, truly, I don't know if he will be. I think he should be.
Okay.
And
that's my answer, by the way.
Assuming he wants to be still.
Assuming he wants to be. But if, like, gun to my head, I have to decide right now, yes or no, is he going to be the play caller? I would say no.
I will say real quick, Jason, Mary Kay just tweeted that this is a quote from Mary Kay, Kevin Stefanski would likely have to turn play calling duties over to Kellen Moore to lure him here as an offensive coordinator.
I'd rather have Kevin Stefanski calling plays than Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
I
So
would-
just
what do we
put
need
that
to
out
Moore,
there
put
into
Kellen
this
Moore,
conversation.
Kellen Moore for?
Especially coming off the season that he's coming off of in L.A. It's not like he set the world on fire, and he had all the assets, all the tools.
Yeah.
Especially because he had a DC as the head coach.
Right. So he was calling
So
plays.
he was
the
the
head
Jim
coach of the
Schwartz.
offense.
He was the Jim Schwartz of the Chargers
Correct.
offense.
And
The head
even
coach
before
of the
Herbert
offense.
got hurt, missed the season, Herbert was having his worst year. And they were having their worst year as an offense since Herbert's been there.
And again, that doesn't mean he's one bad year
No,
doesn't
but
make
it's
you
not
a
like
bad-
he's a guy, oh my God, we
I
can't
know.
lose him.
Yeah, I
We've got to
know.
give him play calling
Yeah,
to get him.
right,
Well,
right.
you do that at the peril of upsetting and potentially losing Kevin Stefanski. Am I making too much of the fact, because I've had one person tell me yes and one person tell me no, that they answered the extension contract the way they did, Andrew Berry, the other day. We like Kevin. And that we're more than a week removed from the end of the season, and there hasn't been any talk of we're in negotiations. Or this. Like, that concerns me a little bit.
I don't think it's Andrew's call. Like,
That concerns me even more.
But like, no, but I've made this point multiple times. Kevin was here first.
I understand
Like
that.
Andrew's the boss,
But it wouldn't be the first
But Kevin
time.
was here first.
But it's happened. There are examples of GMs that were brought in after the coach that later got rid of the coach.
Yeah, but was it really the GM or was it higher up?
Well,
and that's why I think in this instance, I don't think it's Andrew's decision to hand Kevin the contract. I think it's Jimmy and Paul.
Do you think it should be AB's decision? Because I do. I think that falls under his job description. A good owner hires good people and then gets the hell out of the way.
Agreed. And in this instance, though, I think that would be. I know you're going to throw that clipboard at me. I think it'd be Paul. Because if you're hiring good people and good people you believe in, and again, I think Paul's role should be identifying those people. That's his role should not be what they do on 3rd and 6. Paul's role should be building the structure of the organization, identifying talent, identifying smart people, putting them in leadership positions, and then moving on. I'm not saying that is his role, but I think that should be his role. So
I think Kevin Stefanski, if you play in the Game of Thrones, sometimes you got to fall back. Sometimes you got to let go. Let it go. That's that Frozen. I'm sure you got kids. You all seen it.
I sang that song for years.
Let it go. Look, it may seem like a step back, but here's how you spin it. The last time you was in control of the offense, your team went to the playoffs with all these backups. If they want you to take a step back and give it to somebody else, sure. Let me go ahead and take 2 steps back. Now what you do is you put the onus and the responsibility on those who are now in the offense.
Yeah, but let me give you one piece of information that might change that. Last year, the guy who was the offensive coordinator but didn't call the plays got fired.
Mm-hmm. So this year...
So who's going to be, if he's not calling the plays next year, why couldn't he be fired too?
I don't think he would be fired. You know who the blame would go down on? The offensive coordinator, Deshaun Watson.
It always goes down on the head coach. It can't go down on Deshaun. He's guaranteed for 3 more years.
Yeah.
Here's another thing too. If he goes down like that, and sometimes you in organizations, sometimes it's not a good fit because they set you up.
Yeah.
So maybe his place is somewhere else that's better suited at the end of the day.
I think Kevin's off the hot seat, right? Like we can all agree on that. But to Jay's point, I think I can say that Freddie was one of them. I remember talking to Freddie. Freddie's like, if I'm going down doing it my way. Like
That's the way you should.
I'm calling the
Hugh
plays.
Jackson said the same thing.
Yeah, like who was the OC when Freddie was here? Munkin, wasn't it Munkin?
Yeah.
I think it was.
But Freddie called the plays.
I'd forgotten about
Freddie
that.
called the plays, and Freddie's like, if I'm going down, I'm doing it my way.
Right.
And he did go down.
And
but he did it his way.
But the idea
I
that
did it my way.
the idea that the owner would say, "Hey, you've lost your play calling duties. You got to bring in an OC."
That to me is a real slap on the credentials.
That's just if I'm Kevin Stefanski, I'm like, we just had a season where if I don't win Coach of the Year, I'm certainly in the conversation for it. And you're taking and you're saying something negative about me.
You're replacing me.
You've lost faith in me.
You're replacing me.
By the way,
Right.
a coach who wins Coach of the Year twice in 4 years is making like $15 million on his next contract.
Should.
Do you know how many times it's ever happened?
I bet once or
A
twice.
handful. I went back and looked. It's been I think Belichick did it a couple times, right?
No,
Rivera.
actually, I have a graphic. Steve, give me 242. It's happened 6 times in NFL history.
Wow, I
but
wouldn't have
only
guessed that
3
many
times
times.
in the last 40 years. A couple of them.
Well, let's see the names that have done it.
Rivera,
Bruce,
right?
Bruce Arians most recently 2 times in 4 years. So if Stefanski wins it this year, it'll be the 2nd time in 4 years. Bruce Arians in 2012, 2014. Mike Ditka, 85, 88. Joe
Gibbs
Gibbs,
back to
82, 83.
back.
Then you got to go all the way back to Ali Sherman, Don Shula, and George Hallis.
All right.
That's it?
That's
there's
the
some-
list of
there's
2
some
times
big
in
names
4
on
years.
that
There's a
list.
bunch of guys that have done 2 times in 5 years.
Okay.
It's
maybe
funny
cut it
because
to
you don't
4.
put I don't think of Bruce Arians as a great coach personally.
No,
I certainly
don't
don't
either.
think of Kevin Stefanski's a great coach. I think he's a good coach, but I wouldn't put him with
Well, the surprise
Joe
to me is that
Gibbs.
Belichick never did it, but there's always been a backlash against the guy that's just not just beating everybody, but boat racing
Right.
the whole thing.
Well, you have
the
the
guys
greatest
who
of all
win
time.
are the most surprising teams, not the best.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say this later, but, as I went to counseling back in the day, I would go to a counselor and he would say, when I got married, he'd say, hey, you're supposed to change when you get married, right? And I said, yeah, I am changed. He said, no. He said, you've been in this meeting and you've mentioned 4 or 5 other different groups of people. You've mentioned your mom, your dad, your family, your friends, your coworkers.
You never mentioned yourself.
You haven't mentioned your wife.
Oh.
And when you get married, your wife is right there with you. Nobody comes before your wife at all. And in the world of football, no one comes before the quarterback. We had a bunch of girlfriends. We had no wives at quarterback. We gave Deshaun Watson a bunch of money. We are married for better or worse.
We didn't have girlfriends. We had one night stands.
One night,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
And for
with an ugly chick at 3 a.m.
And STDs and penicillin shots.
We are here. We are here with this wife, and
Hey,
we're
they're
not,
stuck with us. We're the ugly guy.
we not arguing, but Deshaun Watson
Yeah.
is who you're married to. So Jimmy Haslam, whether he likes Kevin Stefanski or not, or he likes what the other team and pieces of parts are, you have to side with your wife.
Well, that's a great point, G, because Jimmy Haslam's legacy is in the balance here.
yes.
His legacy to this point is unsatisfactory. Or to use your word, underwhelming.
Well, I would say, it's shocking.
If he's going to turn it around, it's going to be with number 4.
That's it. He already made his
think
money.
We would say that. There are a lot of fans that think Jimmy's a great owner.
Well, and I know exactly where that goes.
yeah.
That is.
Again,
I mean, it's out there.
from our UCSS poll,
Yeah.
he was the best owner in town.
And even if you didn't put it that way, because in that poll you have to pick somebody.
Well, there were 3 choices. One of them has won a championship.
I hear
One
you.
has done a lot with little.
You could argue at this point that you don't like any of the owners here.
Well, that's a very good argument.
But if you just put a poll up, is Jimmy Haslam a good owner? Yes or no? You would get at least 50% would say yes.
You want to do it right
Give
now?
it a shot.
Do it.
Let it
Do
ride.
Also, Bill Belichick is on that list. He did.
Oh,
I counted wrong, so it's 7.
Okay.
But
That's
his was 4 apart. It was 07
I think
to a
Rivera
10.
did too. I just texted you. I'm almost
Ron
positive.
Rivera?
Yeah.
Ron Rivera.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I just looked
the
this up.
Panthers?
Could it have been with 2 different teams?
Maybe.
It was with 2 different. It would have had to be.
I'll look up the Rivera one in a second.
I think it was Rivera. I think he's on that list too.
All right.
And when you hear about it, you hear about Kraft, like Belichick. I was watching ESPN the other day. He said, you know what, Bill Belichick right now, Robert Kraft is second guessing the decision to let Bill Belichick run Tom Brady out of town. He said, Bill told me this guy couldn't play anymore. Here,
He said that?
Here I see him winning
Wait,
championships.
he said that publicly? I didn't see
Well,
that.
no.
The-
That's the
Oh, that's what people
Well,
are saying.
No, go read the Seth Wickersham story.
Oh, I didn't see that
it's
yet.
phenomenal
Oh, wow.
on how it unraveled.
and so
Because yes, it's in that story that Rivera or Kraft says he told me Tom couldn't play anymore.
And when you see that, and now there's a reason why Bill is only getting these little interviews with the Falcons. I mean, do you want to turn it all over to him? To me, we had the lifelong situation that says, which is more important, the quarterback or the head coach?
What's the quarterback?
It's the
I
quarterback.
never
If you
thought-
have the right quarterback.
If you got the right guy.
If you have the right quarterback.
It's the quarterback.
Yes, if you have a mid-tier or bottom quarterback, then it's the coach.
Well, I would
Yeah.
say there's only a handful of examples in recent memory
Yeah.
where an organization picked the coach.
Yeah.
Obviously, in Kansas City, let me ask you this. What if
Yeah.
Andy Reid walked in tomorrow and said, it's me or it's Patrick?
Bye, Andy.
Bye, Andy.
Yeah.
We love having you here, but
Yeah.
good luck wherever you go.
yeah.
But now this comes back to the 6 straight conference title games. Deshaun won playoff win. There's quite a gap
Oh,
here
no.
in what
Hey,
we're
hey,
talking
we're
about.
not gonna-
He's got
before you get the
the
keys
he's
to
got
the bus.
he's got the contract. He's got the ring, but he ain't got the resume.
Right. That's
So-
and now you sometimes.
Which is why I was so surprised he got the contract.
Well,
So typically the resume comes before the
They
contract.
were so desperate.
With second contract.
They were so desperate.
I know a lot of people that their wife died, they're mid-50s, got a lot of money on their hands, and they meet somebody walking up looking 25, shapely.
Robert Kraft.
They make a whole lot of bad decisions.
Every billionaire in America.
Robert Kraft.
You're right.
Hey, Jay's like, that's half my friends. Stop that. I'm still working out
Those
for
are
the
the
comedy
Yacht
show.
boys.
I'm still working for the comedy show, man. I was just joking.
I would laugh at that. Because you probably ain't wrong.
Yeah, I set it up cool. Like, go ahead.
Oh, just wait till you hit that midlife.
Oh, listen. You start first. It starts with shoes, then it goes to cars, then it's backyard renovations.
Yeah.
But to get back to the 30 for 30 on Deshaun
Woo!
and Baker and all that.
Oh, my God.
Is going to be
that
phenomenal.
Yeah, it will.
because it's going to cover about a 20-year period, because you can't tell the Baker story without saying all the L's, because they're going to put Johnny in there.
Oh, for sure.
Brandon Whedon.
Like Johnny's
trapped
in
under the
there.
flag.
Oh my gosh!
But really, just
Whew.
you're right. There's a big scope there. But when you hone in
Yeah,
on
and-
the dynamics
Yeah.
and the cities that were touched by it,
Right.
Carolina, L.A. tangentially for a minute, Tampa, Houston, Cleveland. There is so much going on with the fallout from the Baker Deshaun decision that I think before it becomes a 30 for 30. Baker has to solidify himself as a starter into his 30s, because if he disappears, people will forget. And I think Deshaun has to have some kind of a turnaround here.
Yeah.
And it's going to be one hell of
But
a
like
30 for 30.
the butterfly effect. If Carolina guarantees the whole contract, Deshaun's in Carolina right now. Period.
Yeah.
Repeat that.
If Carolina was willing to guarantee the whole contract, Deshaun would be in Carolina. Carolina flat out told him,
Wow.
I wrote that.
So they were the other team?
Well, they were. I mean, there was 4. There was New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina,
Miami?
and Cleveland.
Or
What's a little troubling to
Miami
me
was out
about
early.
that is none of those 4 franchises are known, although Atlanta maybe I would throw out, but the other 3, and Atlanta was his hometown.
Atlanta was his hometown.
So I think the other 3, they're not known for making great decisions.
No,
Carolina right now can't get out of its own way.
I know.
Well,
Well,
and who would have been? We don't know who would have been the Browns quarterback.
Well, that's the
because
butterfly
Baker-
effect of the whole
question.
thing.
You assume you would have stuck with Baker for another year.
was under-
although
Kevin has
Baker,
said he was ready to move forward with Baker, thought he could win with Baker.
He was under contract.
Yeah, but what's he going to say? I mean, what else is he going to say? But remember, when the Browns tried and initially failed for Watson, that's when Baker wanted to be traded. Even before
Yes.
they actually made the trade.
It was after word came out that
Yes.
they were making a strong play because
Right.
Baker said he was lied to.
Yeah.
What's the truth on that? We may never know.
Baker was at a Morgan Wallen concert with Wyatt Teller when he found out that the Browns were going to see Deshaun. Like, that's how I found out. They were at a concert. It's just, that's what I'm saying. Like, the little
Right.
nugget
So who
details
knows
of this
now?
whole thing
They would have
will
had
be
all- they would
fascinating.
have had-
Wyatt will have a role in
You
the
would have had all
33rd.
these draft picks. Let's say Baker had the same season he had last year, just for example.
Okay.
Well, the Browns would have let him walk.
Sure.
Now, if he had a good year, they would have probably kept him. But if he had the same year as last year, he would have walked. The Browns would have had first-round picks. It probably would have been somewhat high. Maybe they would have drafted. Who knows? You know, I mean, we'll never
The
know.
butterfly effect is crazy off the whole thing.
Or look at it this way.
Yeah.
What if he had the year that he had in Tampa this year?
Right.
Like,
then
he gets
they
his
would have signed
extension.
him to an extension.
He gets his I mean, sure he
Right.
does.
So we'll never
Oh,
know.
what if
but-
he just took the reported $30 million that was on the table?
Was
after?
it ever that high?
No, I don't think
I
it-
never
no.
heard it was that high. I heard it was in the 20s.
No, I don't
And in
think
the lower 20s.
So what, 22 a year?
I just heard low 20s. Yeah.
So if
Don't know.
they offer you $22 million a year, and he
But-
at the time he probably was like,
I
I'm number one pick, I'm not
talked,
taking it.
I talked to people who were in Houston with the Texans. I shouldn't say one. I talked to one person who was fairly high up with the Texans, who was part of the negotiations with the trade, who thought he was going to New Orleans. They thought, like, the Texans organization thought he would wind up in New Orleans. And then when Carolina wouldn't guarantee the whole contract, it flipped everything. And I wrote that. That's how the Browns got back into it. When
Right.
Carolina refused to guarantee the whole thing, that's when Cleveland got back
See,
into
what was
it.
interesting to me, and this was just on the sidelines and watching it from a distance, and not calling or talking to anybody. To me, I thought the worm turned when he had come out and said, Cleveland's off my list. And Baker had come out and said, I want out of there. To me, I'm like, uh-oh, Deshaun's going to get the bank and Baker is out. Because at that point, Cleveland couldn't continue the marriage with someone that they had already that found out through a friend that you were cheating on you.
Because I remember that, and everyone's saying, "Oh my God, the building's on fire. The Browns have done it
it
again."
was literally the next day we heard about this deal.
I kind of looked at it as like, guys, the building's not on fire. Like, the Browns, of all those 4 finalists that we're talking about, the only one that had a quarterback, an established quarterback, was the Browns.
Right.
And they chose to go down this path anyway. That tells you all you need to know. They had made up their mind on Baker for the long term. They knew the blowback and the ramifications once this got out that they were one of the teams. They knew how this was going to play out publicly. They knew it was going to get ugly, and they did it anyway. So, I mean, if Deshaun would have wound up in Carolina, New Orleans, or anything else, maybe Baker, they could say, Baker, you got a contract. You're
have to
contracted to
play.
be here. What are you going to do?
Right.
You're going to sit out?
And I do, and I'm just supposition, but I would suppose that Baker, even if the Deshaun thing fell through, because he would have had to, contractually, would have gotten over it and would have come back with this chip on his shoulder.
Well,
which
that's
we
what
know
you
he
want.
loves.
That's what you want.
Now
You want
I'm coming
motivated
back,
Baker.
I am playing my ass off,
Yep.
and I am leaving you and
Yep.
going to Pittsburgh.
And they would
now-
have said, okay, fine.
Go
We'll
ahead.
take that.
And it'll be
we'll
interesting
take that.
next year when not everybody's crapping on him again. Can he follow it up? Because he has not been able to do that
Yeah.
in his career.
No,
But,
not 2 years in a row, no.
right. So circling back to wrap it up, Mike, because I know we got to move.
Yep.
What I would do is hire a young offensive coordinator. I would keep calling plays if I were Stefanski.
Yes.
I'd bring the guy along, see how this year goes, and maybe as time goes by, consider turning the reins over to this young
All
guy
for that.
as he's part of my program. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I-
But